Հայաստանի Հանրապետության մեծարգո գլխավոր հյուպատոս Սերգեյ Սարգիսով եւ գլխավոր հյուպատոսի դեղակալ Վալերի Մկրտումյան, գերաշնորհ սրբազան հայրեր, հոգեշնորհ հայրեր եւ արժանապատիվ քահանաներ, բազմարժան քաղաքական գործիչներ, հարգելի իրավապան Ֆեթիե Չետին, սիրելի դիգնայք եւ բարոնայք։ Լոս Անջելեսի հայոց ցեղասպանության ողջագործման հայկական միացյալ մարմնի անունով ողջունենք ձեզ սիրելի հայրենագիտներ։ Անունս Միհրան Թումաջյան է եւ ես փոխհանդիսավարներն մեկն եմ։ Ինչպես ամեն տարի 1968-ին ի վեր բոլորս հավաքված ենք այսօր այս վսեմ հուշարձանին շուրջ մեր միասնական հարկանքի դուրքը մատուցանելու 1.5 միլիոն անմեղ եւ անզեն հայ նահատակներու, որոնք անմահացան վասն հավատո եւ վասն հայրենիած 1915-1923 թվականներու ընթացքին։ Ինչպես շատերը տեղյակ եք, հայոց ցեղասպանությունը որպես ցեղասպանություն, genocide, այսօր պաշտոնապես ջանցված է 29 երկրներու կողմէ, ինչպես նաև 45 ամերիկյան նահանգներու կողմէ։ Վերջինը ըլլալով Wyoming նահանգը, որուն նահանգապետ Մերթյու Միդը պաշտոնապես ջանցավ ցեղասպանությունը, շնորհիվ հայ-թադի գրասենյակի աշխատակազմի եւ մասնավորապես Էլեն Ասատրյանին իմ փոխհանդիսավարուհին եւ Սիմոն Մաղաքյանի ճանկերուն։ Վարձ կդար սիրելի Էլեն։ Շուտով քրոշակի արարողությունն ու ասկային քայլերները պիտի ունգընտրենք, բայց նախ փոխանցեմ բարձրախոսը հանդիսավարուհի Էլեն Ասատրյանին։
Ladies and gentlemen, reverend clergy, distinguished guests, community leaders, partners, members, and dear friends. On behalf of the United Armenian Council for the Commemoration of the Armenian Genocide, Los Angeles, thank you for joining us today as we gather to commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, a crime against humanity during which the Ottoman Turks slaughtered over 1.5 million innocent men, women, and children, a crime that to date goes unpunished and is denied by the perpetrators. But to deny the Armenian Genocide, or to attempt to call it anything but what it was, a genocide, is not to simply deny the rape and slaughter of over 1.5 million innocent lives. It is to deny perhaps the proudest chapter in American history, during which over 30 years the American people helped raise over $117 million, which is 2.7 billion in today's dollars, from every state for the Armenian Genocide. To deny the Armenian Genocide is to deny an effort which built over 400 orphanages, food and clothing distribution centers, and medical clinics by the Near East Relief. To deny is to deny the more than 1,000 volunteers worldwide and most American who left their comfortable lives to travel across ocean and land to help the survivors, some to never return. To deny the Armenian Genocide is to deny that more than 73 million people worldwide substituted their hearty Sunday dinners with a modest orphan meal and donated the difference of cost to help feed the starving orphans, a movement that came to be known as the Golden Rule Sunday. To deny is to deny the lives and stories of my great-grandmother, who was one of the orphans saved by the Near East Relief, and the parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents of all Armenians here today and around the world. And yet, what happened 102 years ago today continues to date in different forms. We see it in the ongoing war in Syria and in the gross human rights violations, the imprisonment of intellectuals, educators, and journalists, and murder that exists today under the dictatorships of Erdogan in the Republic of Turkey and Aliyev in the Republic of Azerbaijan. So as we keep the memories of our ancestors alive and continue to demand justice for a crime that has gone unpunished, we also pray for and keep close to our hearts the innocent men, women, and children that seek peace and are impacted by the horrendous crimes that continue to date around the world. We have an incredibly moving program for you today, and thank you for joining us. presentation of flags by the Homenetmen and HBU Scouts, followed by the singing of the national anthems of the United States and Armenia by UACLA co-chair Tavi Samuelian, accompanied by Aram Lepedjan.
Ընդհանուր սկատական խումբ, պատրաստ, քայլարաջ, on! Ընդհանուր խումբ, աճուձախ, դարձ, կանգ, արկ, դեպդրոշակ, պատվի, արկ,
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaking, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night, and our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Մեր հայրենիք ազատանգա, որ ապրել է դարեթար, յուր որդիկը ականջում է ազատանգա Հայաստան, յուր որդիկը ականջում է ազատանգա Հայաստան. Նայիր նրան երեկույնով, նվիրական մեր նշան, թող ողողի թշնամուտ եմ, թող միշտ բանձա Հայաստան, թող ողողի թշնամուտ եմ, թող միշտ բանձա Հայաստան. Ամենայն դեմ մահը մի է, մարդ մի անգամ բիդ մեռնի, բայց երանի, որ յուր ազգի ազատության կզովի, բայց երանի, որ յուր ազգի ազատության կզովի.
Շնորհակալություն. Thank you.
Într-un patrast. Aciuzah darts. Head darts. Kalaraj. On. Într-un cam ar.
We have many elected officials here with us today who've joined us in solidarity as we commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce the pride and rock star of Montebello, our very own Montebello City Council member, the Honorable Jack Kajinian, to the stage, who will be introducing distinguished elected speakers representing this region, who will in return provide welcoming remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Montebello. I'm proud to serve on the City Council and to be the first Armenian elected to the City Council. Some may have heard, I'm a third-generation resident of Montebello. My grandfather settled here in Montebello, came to this community in 1956, and it was here where he was able to experience the American dream by owning a home. And it was here in the United States where my grandfather had his first opportunity to enjoy religious freedom and to enjoy his identity as an Armenian. So I want to take that opportunity, this opportunity, to once again thank the United States for what it is, such a great place. This year, we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Montebello City Council approving the first ever Genocide Commemoration Monument on public property outside of Armenia in the entire world. One of the things I did as the mayor during the centennial is I went into the archives and I dug up the minutes from the city council meetings. And some of you who are here may have been present at that time. But what was most interesting to me were the comments that were made by Turkish Americans who flew in, drove in from far places to protest the idea and to try to consider, or to convince the city council rather, not to approve this monument. And some of the most preposterous and unfound comments and statements were made. But one comment that sticks with me is one that was told to me by my family. After the city council then that voted to approve this monument, a group of Turks got up and said, "Boy, we really made a mistake. We should have killed all of you. We wouldn't be here right now." Genocide denial takes place every single day. It almost took place in the city of Irvine a couple weeks ago, but with the good effort of all the Armenian communities in town and in the surrounding areas, we were able to kill that idea. It was the most offensive thing that they would declare April 23rd Turkish Heritage Month. I can go on for a while, but I'm sure you've heard and there's plenty of other politicians who want to speak. But what I want to do at this time is first prayer. Okay. Sorry, I did it on this. Okay. So I'll step back.
Ցեղասպանության 100 տարելիցն ապրիլի նահատակները համարվեցին սրբազան։ Բեմ եմ հրավիրում բոլոր հոգևորականներին սրբազան հայրերի առաջնորդությամբ կատարելու սուրբ արարողությունը։
Օրհնյալ Տեր մեր Հիսուս Քրիստոս ամեն, Հայր մեր, որ եկինս ես, Սուրբ Եղիսյան քո, Եղեսյա կայքին քո, Եղեցին գամ քո, որպես եկինս երեպի, Կսած մեր հանապազոր, դուր մեզ այսօր, և ով մեր սպարտիս մեր, որպես և մենք կողմք մերոց պարտաբանած, և մի դանիրս մեզ իգործություն, այն ռյազ են չարեն, Զիգոյ արկայություն և զորություն և պար, հավիտյան հավիտենից, ամեն։
Χριστός ασφάλς մեր վասն սուրբ խաչի քո պատվագանի, ըսխաղաղություն քո դուր մեզ դեր։ Եվ սրբույնը Ստեփանոսի նախավգային, ըսխաղություն քո դուր մեզ դեր։ Սրբոց քո ցարակելոց, Մարգարեից մարդաբեդած, Մարտիրոսած հայրաբեդած, Ջգնավորած կուսանած, Միանձանց և երկնային զորացն, ըսխաղաղություն քո դուր մեզ դեր։ Լուսավորչացն մերոց, Մատեոսի և Բարդոմեոսի, և սրբոց Հակոբյանց երջանի գարակելոց, և սրբույն Գրիգորի մերո լուսավորչին, Եվ սրբոցը Հակոբամըց բնայրաբեդին, Մարուքեի ջկնավորին, Մելիդոսի եպիսկոպոսին, Եվ Քևորքա և Վարդանակաճած օրավարածն, Այլև բարեխոսությամբ իշադագավ և աղոթյունք սրբոց, Նադագացն մերոց, որ կադարեցան հնդացս հայոց ցեղասպանության, վասն հավատո և վասն հայրենյաց, որոց այսօր իշադագն կադարեն, ըսխաղություն և մեծ ողորմությունքով արգևյա մեզ մարդասերդեր։
Surp ճգնավորքն աղաչես ցուկս դեր, որ Չարլզ Բարգեցին, Նևուչյանց համբերեցին, լուսեղեն և երկնային անտարամ վսագացն արժանի եղեն, աղոթյուք նոցա և բարեխոսությամբ մեզ ողորմեսցի, ամենագալ դեր աստված մեր գեցո և ողորմյա։
Դեր ողորմյա, դեր ողորմյա, դեր ողորմյա։ Վսագիտ սրբոց Քրիստոս, որ վսագես սուրբս քո, և արնեսս գամս և յուղազած քոց, և նայիս սիրով և կաղցությամբ հարարածս քո, լուր մեզ հերնից, իսրկուտենեք ու մեր բարեխոսությամբ սուրբ աստվածազնին, և աղաչանոք ամենայն սրբոց քոց, և սրբոց նահադագացն, որ կադարեցան ընթացս հայոց ցեղասպանության վասն հավատով և վասն հայրենյաց, լուր մեզ դեր և ողորմյա, ներյա, կավյա և տովս մեղս վեր, արժանավոր յակողությամբ հարավորելս կեզ, ընդհոր և ընցրպոքվույթ, այժմ և միշտ և ավիդյանս ավիդենից, ամեն։
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we wouldn't be gathered here at this location if it wasn't for the foresight of a group of visionaries. And the name of those people, there's a plaque here on the monument with their names on there. But just a couple months ago, we lost one of those visionaries, and he was a long-time member of this community who would be here today had he not passed. And I want to take a moment to remember Michael Minasian. The city of Montebello recently passed a resolution, like they have for many decades. This city has always been on the right side of the issue, but we passed a resolution this past council meeting declaring April, the entire month of April, as the Armenian Remembrance Month. And in the language of that resolution, of course, we recognize the massacre of the 1.5 million Armenians during the genocide, but we also have language in there where we recognize the genocide of the Assyrians and the Greeks. With no further ado, I'd like to call up to the stage our state representatives that represent our fine city of Montebello. In the state assembly, we have Cristina Garcia and our state senator, Tony Mendoza.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Garcia, the State Assembly member for the 58th District that includes the city of Montebello. We're gathered today solemnly to remember the 1.5 million lives lost over a century ago. Year after year, we join together at the Armenian Genocide Martyrs Monument here in Montebello. This monument is a landmark of the rich Armenian community here in the 58th District. It is a direct result of community members who were determined in building a structure that would memorialize and preserve the memories of the martyrs of the Armenian Genocide. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary of this monument. The Martyrs Monument was built back in 1968. As you heard earlier this year, Michael Manassian, a prominent leader of the local Armenian community here, passed away, who was instrumental in this monument. This is one of the, just like many of you here today, he was a direct descendant of survivors of the Armenian Genocide. This is one of the many reasons it is critical to ensure these grounds stand for generations to come, to ensure we have a place where communities gather to remember an atrocity that was not too long ago. This monument also brings us together to educate future generations so that the atrocities never are repeated again. I'm very proud that this monument is here in my district. I do want to take a moment as the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus. Each passing year, we are learning more about the atrocities of the Armenian Genocide and how this affected the women. The story of the Armenian women is often the story of those who didn't perish, but were forced to live lives of shame and horror as they watched their fathers, husbands, brothers, and children die needlessly while they were left behind to live the lives of sex slaves and forced to be wives of others, oftentimes branded with the Turkish flag on their heads or on their arms, on their hands. The suffering of the Armenian women has been kept silent inside many families because of the ongoing shame. Armenian women suffered greatly. They too paid a terrible price. It is our responsibility to bring to light the history of all the Armenians, the 1.5 million who were murdered, including those women who were left behind over 100 years ago to continue to live with those atrocities. Thank you for being here today and to help us memorialize this until justice is served.
Hello everyone, welcome to the 32nd Senate District. My wife Letty and I are here joining you, and I want to thank all of you for being here. Today we remember and commemorate those impacted by the Armenian Genocide. I especially want to thank the Armenian and Assyrian communities for being here today. It is an honor for Montebello to be home of the Armenian Genocide Memorial. It reminds us to be vigilant against the crimes of the past in order to protect the future. Today we mark the 49th anniversary of the opening of this monument. I am appreciative of the opportunity to take part in this remembrance, to remember those 1.5 million Armenians who lost their lives, and to celebrate the wonderful legacy of the Armenian community here in the state of California. Earlier this week, the Senate welcomed guests from the movie The Promise, a feature film that takes place during the Armenian Genocide. It was a pleasure to meet many of the cast and discuss the film, which I hope to see in the coming days, and I hope that you will too. Again, I cannot thank everyone enough for attending. We must remember the past and honor those who suffered these great injustices. It is our duty to ensure that these crimes never happen again. Thank you all for being here and have a wonderful day. Appreciate it.
At this time, we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all dignitaries and public officials in attendance, some of whom will address the audience this afternoon. First, I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Consul General of the Republic of Armenia in Los Angeles, Sergei Sarkisov. And the Honorable Deputy Consul General and Minister Plenipotentiary, Valery Magordumian. Permanent Representative of the Artsakh Republic to the United States, Robert Avedisian.
We also have with us Congresswoman Judy Chu, representing the 27th Congressional District. Congressman Ed Royce, the 39th District. Congresswoman Lina Sanchez from the 38th District. Congressman Adam Schiff from the 28th District. California State Treasurer John Chang. California Secretary of State Alex Padilla. California State Senator from the 25th District Anthony Portantino. California State Assembly Member Adrian Nazarian. Los Angeles Council Member from the 2nd District Paul Krikorian. Los Angeles Council Member from the 4th District David Rue.
We also have with us the Mayor of the City of Monterey Park, Teresa Real Sebastian. City Council Member of the City of Glendale, Varej Agajanian. City Council Member of the City of Glendale, Vartan Garabedian. City Council Member of the City of Gardena, Harut Kaskanian. City Treasurer of the City of Montebello, Ashot Muradian. City Clerk of the City of Glendale, Ardi Kasakian. Superior Court of Los Angeles County, Judge Zabin Sinanian. Glendale Unified School District School Board Member, Greg Krikorian. Glendale Unified School District School Board Member, Dr. Armine Garabedian. Glendale Unified School District School Board Member, Shant Sahagian. And candidate for Los Angeles City Council District 7, Garo Torosian. At this juncture, I would like to welcome to the podium, representing the Republic of Armenia, Consul Armela Shakarian.
Honorable members of Congress, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered today to once again remember and commemorate the Armenian Genocide. Commemoration is a way of countering the distortion of history and elimination of truth by power. Commemoration is a victory of truth over expediency and condemnation of violence. These commemorations are very critical in the face of growing threat of genocide in the world today. The Armenian people will always remain standing by the side of those who suffered for crimes against humanity. Each Armenian living in this world will never stand silent, never forget, and will continue to demand truth and justice. This just cause should be supported by all those who are concerned about the peaceful future of the mankind. The unwavering international struggle against crimes of genocide will remain an integral part of our foreign policy. The goal of our policy is to form effective mechanisms for preventing future crimes against humanity. Recognition of the Armenian genocide is not a tribute to the Armenian people. It is a victory of international human rights movement. It is a victory of justice over intolerance and contempt. Today, I would like to emphasize what we want for our people, for our country, and our region. We don't want to live in the past. We want to reconcile with the past, and we forge a future. We cannot build the future alone. Neither we can build a future together with a neighbor that is dishonest about our common past. Despite our neighbor, who seems to be stepping back from the positive direction in democracy with their recent referendum, Armenia is moving forward with the constitutional changes, making the parliament
a number one platform in the country, ability to unite ideas and notions for all able forces regardless of their political standing. We'll launch the wave of reforms to lead the society towards new economic and political freedoms, to break the stereotypes, to provide new flexibility to the economy, new approaches for the resolution of political disputes and problems facing the country. We are ready for peaceful regional coexistence, as hard as the road to peace may be. I would like to express our appreciation to the members of the U.S. Congress and the Armenian American community for their continuous efforts towards increasing the awareness of Armenian genocide, voicing the importance of the Armenian genocide recognition, and emphasizing the connection between the genocide denial and the recurrence of this tragedy. I would also like to express our gratitude to the authorities of the state of California and the city of Los Angeles for supporting the opening of the permanent Armenian Genocide Monument in the very heart of this great community, a fulfillment of the remarkable initiative of the Armenian community. It stands as the first memorial built on the state property land in Los Angeles devoted to the Armenian genocide, to the memory of victims of all genocides, as well as symbolizes the input that the Armenian community has made to the cultural diversity of American society. It is also an expression of gratitude of our community to the United States, American people, the state of California, and this great city which hosted hundreds of thousands of Armenians. We are grateful to all of you for being here today to restate your commitment to universal values, to say that nothing has been forgotten, and to say that more than 100 years past, we remember and we demand. We will be waiting for you tomorrow at 10 o'clock for the March for Justice. Thank you.
Այժմ բադիվ նունիք ներգայացնելու մեր հարկարժան հայրենագիծը, ով հսկայական աշխատանքներ ձեռնարկած է դարիներու ընթացքին ի նվաստ հայոց ցեղասպանության ճանաչման եւ փոխհատուցման նպատակներուն, ըլլա Բուրբենք քաղաքի գրթական ադյաններեն, Կալիֆոռնիա նահանգային համաժողովեն, ինչպես նաեւ Լոս Անջելեսի քաղաքային խորհուրդեն ներս։
Our next speaker is no stranger to our community. A descendant of an Armenian genocide survivor, he has carried the torch of justice through the halls of local schools, the California State Capitol, and now in Los Angeles City Hall. A leader who has mentored countless young people and has implemented sound policies for the betterment of our community, our city, and our great state. Born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, Councilmember Paul Krikorian has spent more than a decade in public service. Since 2010, he has served on the Los Angeles City Council, where his leadership as chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee helped guide the city through the Great Recession and toward great economic progress. Councilmember Krikorian is also chair of the Ad Hoc Committee on Job Creation, the vice chair of the Entertainment and Facilities Committee, and sits on the Economic Development Committee, Trade, Commerce, and Technology Committee, Executive Employee Relations Committee, and the Board of Referred Powers. In 2006, after 3 years on the Burbank Board of Education, Paul won election to the California State Assembly, representing the 43rd Assembly District. In Sacramento, Paul worked to increase government accountability and transparency as co-chair of the Legislative Ethics Committee, and brought Armenian genocide recognition to the front line of the legislative agenda. Through his current elected position, he established the Los Angeles Shushi Sister City organization and continues to develop the Los Angeles Yerevan Sister City Partnership. Please help me welcome Councilmember Krikorian.
Thank you, Ellen. Good afternoon, everyone. Reverend clergy, colleagues in public service, brothers and sisters, it's an honor to be with you again as we gather here in this sacred space at this very solemn time. And before I begin, I do want to take just a minute to thank the members of the United Armenian Council who have worked so hard to organize all of the commemoration events this year and every year. They build a consensus, they volunteer their time, they work hard so that we can be here in solemn remembrance. And I hope that you'll join me in recognizing the work of these leaders and volunteers who make today happen. Because it is one of the times when we demonstrate our unity. And when we have unity, we have strength. When we have strength, we realize action. And there's no time when that is more important than the remembrance of the genocide. And it's especially important because after the screams of the last victims subside, after the homes are ashes, after the bodies of the victims are dust, after the last elderly witness passes from this earth, the only evidence of one of man's darkest moments in history will be our collective memory and recollection. And it's only when that collective memory and recollection is extinguished that the genocide can succeed. So it must be our solemn promise to those who came before us, to the martyrs to the genocide, that we never let that memory be extinguished, that we remember, that we educate, that we teach, here, today, and everywhere and every day. But friends, it's not enough for us just to remember. That's the first duty we have. It's the first promise we must fulfill. But we also come from a nation whose culture enriched the world before Julius Caesar was born. We come from a people whose churches were worshipped in centuries before Columbus set sail. We come from a people who made such contributions to the world and whose contributions were so severely disrupted by the genocide. It's unsettling to think not only of the direct consequences of the genocide, the death, the violence, the displacement, but also think about what the world lost. We were a people that contributed so much. Imagine how many lives would have been saved by physicians who died as youth during the genocide. Imagine how the world's view of itself might have changed by the scientific developments that would have happened by people who would have been educated and raised to become those scientists, except that they perished in the genocide. Think how much richer our world would have been if we had been able to benefit from the artistic and poetic and musical contributions of those who had died and those who would have descended from them. The world lost that during the genocide, not just the Armenian people, the world. And so that's why it's so important that we not only remember, but that we continue to promote and cherish and retain the values and the culture that we hold so dear as a nation. So when I see these scouts who come here today, when I hear my son Andrew playing the piano this morning and playing Hiligia and Sartarabad and Mer Hayrenik, I know that we are continuing to pass that culture forward to the next generation. And each and every one of you who does that, each and every one of you who raises your children to cherish our language and our history and our culture, you are the heroes. You are the real heroes who are passing the torch to the next generation and making sure that the Armenian nation survives. And every one of you who does that deserves our thanks and our appreciation and our gratitude. But there's yet another promise that we need to fulfill, and that is preserving the last best hope for that culture on this earth. Because we know that the Republic of Armenia and we know that the Independent Republic of Artsakh are under grave threat each and every day. We have an increasingly bellicose increasingly outrageous dictator in Turkey who seems to find no limit to the power that he wants to centralize in himself, who has spoken about his desire to destroy our people. We have a leader in Azerbaijan who has declared that he will not rest until the flag of Azerbaijan is planted in Republic Square in Yerevan. And so, at these times more than ever, it must be our solemn promise to stand up for what we have today, to stand up to ensure that while we're remembering the past, we're also building up the future. And in doing that, we must demand of all of our elected officials, we must demand of everyone in the American government that they have to stand with us, not just in remembering the genocide, but in promoting our future, not just in commemorating the atrocities of the past, but recognizing that there are atrocities happening today. Every time there's a shot fired from Azerbaijan into Artsakh, every time there's an innocent villager in a border village in Armenia or in Artsakh who is subjected to atrocity, we know that the genocide has not fully ended. And our friends in government must stand with us now as well, in standing up in defense of Armenia and in defense of Artsakh. And if we insist upon that, and if they stand with us, then we know that the genocide will have failed. Then we know that the Armenian people will survive, will flourish into the future, and will be able to enrich the world for millennia as we have in millennia's past. So please, ask and demand, remember and demand, because it's not enough that we stand here today. The other 364 days of the year, we have to activate like this so that we can ensure the protection of our future as well. And we have great friends who you're about to hear from, who've been terrific friends of ours for many years, including our next speaker, Congressman Royce, who's been such a great champion. Of course, our great champion, Adam Schiff, and all of the other representatives from Congress and government. We expect them to stand with us as they have in the past, to defend Artsakh and defend Armenia as well. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for standing up for a free and independent Artsakh.
Representing the 39th Congressional District of California, let's give a warm welcome to Congressman Ed Royce.
This is a very solemn day today. And one of the things I think that struck me the most was having the responsibility and frankly the honor on the 24th of April, several years ago, to travel to Yerevan to lead a bipartisan delegation and to lay that wreath in memory of the victims, the 1.5 million victims of that genocide. A genocide which not only cost those Armenian innocent people their lives, but a genocide which also wiped out across most of Turkey the historical and the religious and the cultural history. And those acts are still continuing today. And one of the reasons we are here today is because when you go through the archives, which I did one night in Yerevan, the archives that are written in English are an astounding thing to read, because in them you see the words of our ambassador at the time, Henry Morgenthau, and you see the words of the Pasha, who says, "We have already eliminated the Armenians by the sword. We are cleaning the Ottoman Empire of Armenians and Lebanese, and now we will eliminate the Lebanese by starvation." As our ambassador said, it was wholly understood that this was a death warrant for an entire race, for an entire race of people. And the shock of it is that we did not learn the lesson of history. It is hard to get the future right if you get the past wrong. I carried the first resolution on the Armenian genocide of its kind. Here, it was in the state of California, and I passed it through the state senate. But over the years, as we've tried to advance this issue, and right now, Adam Schiff and I are co-authors of a resolution, House Resolution 220, which recognizes the past genocides that have occurred, including the Armenian genocide, and makes the connection to the fact that we're not going to learn from history until we acknowledge the gravity of it, until we actually confess or admit what our former president, Teddy Roosevelt, warned us of after that horrible period of time between 1914 on, where he said, speaking of 1916, he said, the greatest crime of that entire year, of that entire period of time, the greatest crime of the period of the First World War was one thing. It was the Armenian genocide. That was the greatest crime. And not to acknowledge it is to condone it. Those were the words of our president, former president. But not just to condone it, but to make all the words that we speak of about future peace for the world, make that nothing but mischievous nonsense. Nothing but nonsense. So this struggle that you're engaged in is one that has gone on for a long, long time. I think for many of us, one of our proudest moments, and I have to thank Ken Kashigan a little bit for this, who's a friend of mine and who was a personal friend of Ronald Reagan, was President Reagan's comment, direct comment about the Armenian genocide. That is the one time I felt proud of the President of the United States. Adam Schiff and I have written to this president, as we have to others, along with 68 of our colleagues, to urge a recognition of the Armenian genocide. And as I've shared with you, we continue to move our resolution forward. We continue to push on this issue, as last year we pushed a resolution which I had authored, recognizing the current genocide against Christian Armenians going on today as we speak at the hands of ISIS, as a consequence of what is going on with the attacks, the rapes, the pillaging, the killing, the crucifixions even, again, that go on even today. This, my friends, is a responsibility we all carry with us. When I was a student, I knew an elderly Armenian sole survivor, orphaned in his family and in his village. He alone, as a youth, escaped. These lessons of history, as Teddy Roosevelt and others have told us, and as Adolf Hitler so cavalierly dismissed, who remembers the Armenians, as he said. This is what our friend Terry George, who I first met when he did Hotel Rwanda, attempts to convey in the movie The Promise. But the commitment that Adam and I and all of us have is to move forward with the full knowledge so that the next generation of young people really comprehend the enormity of the first genocide of the last century and the lack of learning of the lesson. And until there's the full accountability, my concern is that we will continue to see future genocides. Thank you very much.
Prior to announcing our next speaker, I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of South Pasadena School Board member Susie Abajan, who's here with us today. Our next speaker is the Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, Linda Sanchez, who also happens to be the first woman of color to be elected to leadership position in the history of U.S. Congress. She has championed our cause through the halls, and we're delighted to have her here with us today. Congresswoman Sanchez.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that very kind introduction. I want to begin this afternoon by thanking the United Armenian Council of Los Angeles for inviting me to join you here today in Commemoration. They do so much important work on behalf of the Armenian community, and their volunteers and their staff have done an excellent job in preparing today as a solemn remembrance to those who were killed. The Armenian Genocide is one of the darkest periods in world history. And as we come together today to commemorate this anniversary, we must also renew our commitment never to allow the world to forget what happened. Over the last 100 years, almost all of the survivors have passed away. But their stories are not lost. Their legacy lives on in all of us, their family and their friends. We are the living connection to the cruelty and to the injustice. We are the voices of the 1.5 million Armenians who were murdered. The responsibility to share what happened rests squarely on our shoulders, Armenians and non-Armenians alike. As a representative of the Montebello community, I've heard the stories directly from survivors and their family members, the heroic efforts of those who risked everything to escape the violence. And it saddens me today that there are still those who refuse to acknowledge the atrocities that occurred in 1915. And our country is included in that. But the fight for recognition is our fight, and the momentum is on our side. And after more than 100 years, the tide is beginning to turn. The world must recognize this tragedy for what it is, a genocide. And I think we are closer than ever to gaining recognition for the Armenian genocide here in the United States. I will continue to push our government to formally acknowledge the systematic massacre of the Armenian people as genocide. And when that day comes, and it will come, we can begin to heal the pain. We cannot undo what happened, but we can learn from history and make sure that something like this never happens again. Within the Armenian refugee story is a common thread that unites this country. In almost every family is a story of refugees in search of a better future. It is a story we can all relate to, and it doesn't matter if you came from Armenia in the 1920s, or Germany, or Poland, Central America, or Syria. The United States has always been a place for those escaping oppression. It is my hope that we continue to be a compassionate and a welcoming nation, because we were all strangers here once. I also want to take a moment to recognize the life and the work of a giant in the local Armenian community. In January, we lost Mr. Michael Manassian. Mr. Manassian's life embodies the spirit of hardworking Armenian immigrants everywhere. We are gathered here today at this powerful memorial that Mr. Manassian helped to build. It is because of his vision and determination and the support of so many others that this lasting tribute to 1.5 million murdered Armenians stands tall today. His legacy serves as a shining example of a single life dedicated to lifting his community up and fighting to make the truth known. Mr. Manassian is an inspiration not only to the Armenian American community, but for all future generations of the difference that one man or woman can make. Now, the film The Promise has been mentioned several times this afternoon, and I want to close by giving you my promise. I promise that I am unequivocally with you for as long as it takes to get official recognition of the Armenian genocide. I will keep working with you, shoulder to shoulder, for as long as it takes. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Our next speaker is a steadfast champion of our cause, friend of the Armenian American community throughout the state of California. He served on the California State Board of Equalization between 1997 and 2007 as California State Controller between 2007 and 2015. He currently serves honorably as our state's treasurer. Welcome, State Treasurer John Chang.
Good afternoon and God bless you all. I want to, as our incredibly talented member of Congress, Linda Sanchez, just spoke, I want to acknowledge Mo's dad. Mo standing to my left. Mo, why don't you pause and take in the recognition and applause of your dad. Mo and I, along with many others of this next generation, get together, and it's an incredible blessing and gift that I get to hear from time to time as the children of Armenia, the children of the descendants who lived through the struggle, who rose and fought, share their stories with many upon us. And I'm so inspired, as I always am. I started coming to these gatherings of a decade ago because you have people who understand something larger. As Linda articulated, this struggle is one of humanity. This is not a struggle just of the Armenian people. This is the struggle for those who are passionate, for those who love, those who understand that we have a larger purpose in life. And as Paul Krikorian so articulately stated, this is one where we engage in the recognition and the remembrance of the genocide, not just today, but every opportunity that we have. A few years back, I went to Israel and we had a meeting with the IDF. And in that meeting is today as United States Senator Kamala Harris and our mayor from Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti. And I posed a question to the IDF representative: how do you justify the treatment of Armenia, the residents, your relationship with the Turkish government? And we understand the national security, but we have a larger moral and human purpose. And when you have an ally, best to hear from the people that you have a relationship with. And that's what we have to continue to do. And why I so love this moment is that the children of California, as extraordinarily diverse, as different as we are in so many different ways, have gathered here. But we have that common humanity. And so I love the fact that not only do we have our Washington, D.C. representatives, but Secretary Padilla, the great Senator Anthony Portantino, Mendoza, Assembly Member Cristina Garcia. When we assumed office, and Paul, when he was at the state level, we assumed an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. And we have these values that talk to our greatest spirit, our greatest values together. And the terrific thing about all of that, it is not just confined to the borders of our great state. It's captured by the imagination of our hope of what we want for all of us and the children. And so, along those same lines, I'm Catholic. One of my most favorite quote on that touches me is one from St. Francis of Assisi. And St. Francis of Assisi says, "All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle." And the great thing about all of this is there is not one single light. The hearts of this cause, the heart of each other, the fight and the hope of what we're going to do, not just the remembrance here, but the living spirit, the greatest embodiment of who we are as people, resonates throughout the world. So I look forward to a greater promise, a greater future for all of humanity, because we will fix this. We're going to get to the best humankind possible, and the people that gave of their lives will be one which will be cherished, honored, remembered with love in the highest form ever in this humanity. Thank you to the United Armenian Council for bringing all of us together, to remember the beautiful lives that unite all of us together. Thank you very much.
2 years ago, during the centennial of the Armenian Genocide, our community made history in Los Angeles by having 166,000 people out in the streets of Hollywood demanding justice. We need to do the same when it comes to tomorrow's March for Justice at 12 p.m. from Pan Pacific Park all the way to the Turkish consulate. But aside from marching and commemorating the Armenian genocide, one of the biggest and most powerful tools we have is the opportunity and the right and the privilege to vote and to get counted. Our next speaker, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla, has not only championed our cause when it comes to the Armenian genocide, but he has ensured that individuals that have language barriers, our community members, have an open process when it comes to voting. So I want to give a round of applause for his efforts to ensure that your vote gets counted every time. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the council here as well for inviting me to participate in today's services. My first time back as Secretary of State. It's been my honor to have stood with you not only at prior memorials, but when I was on the City Council in Los Angeles in support of resolutions commemorating the genocide and calling upon our colleagues in Congress to do the same. When I was in the State Senate, I was honored to stand with you in support of resolutions commemorating the genocide and calling on our friends in Congress to do the same. But I want to share just a little bit because you mentioned voter registration in the introduction. And most people, when they think of the California Secretary of State, think of elections and voter registration and how our voice is important in the political process. But it is not my only responsibility. I think those business leaders in the audience know full well the business filing responsibility of our agency. We have a campaign finance responsibility in the Secretary of State's office, but an often overlooked responsibility of the California Secretary of State is to maintain the state's archives, the official records and documents of California government and of California history. So it's also my responsibility to remind us all that California history includes Armenian history. In fact, the history of the United States of America includes the contributions in the impact of Armenian leaders and the Armenian people. Just like world history is incomplete without recognition of Armenian history. And the history of the Armenian people, unfortunately, includes the atrocities, the genocide of 102 years ago. Recognition and remembrance is so important. And as we look at California history and Armenian history, we recognize some Armenian leaders in California history. Many remember the milestone that was represented by the election of George Deukmejian as governor of California. Many people, especially in the literary world, know that William Saroyan lived around the world, but his final years were in Fresno, California. And right here in Montebello, he's been mentioned before a couple of times already, but we still mourn the loss of Michael Venancio. But we know that his legacy continues. He and others who envisioned this monument, but his legend and legacy continues through the activism and the work of his son, Mo. Michael, as many may not recall, served in the U.S. Armed Forces prior to coming here and opening a music store in East Los Angeles. But he'll probably be best remembered through his efforts to fund, design, and build the Armenian Genocide Martyrs Monument here in Montebello, where we are gathered. The monument is the oldest and largest memorial in the United States dedicated to the Armenian Genocide victims. And yes, this year marks the 49th anniversary of the unveiling of the monument, and plans are underway already for next year, the 50th anniversary. So let us honor Michael, let us honor all the victims of the genocide by doing our part not only to remember, but to publicly and officially recognize and to share and to teach. Let us all do our part to ensure that the injustice, the tragedy, the atrocities, the genocide, because that's what it was, the genocide never happens again. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker really needs no introduction, as he has championed the Armenian cause, the Armenian genocide recognition, obtained funding for Armenia and Artsakh, has carried the torch through the halls of Congress, and ensured that our Syrian Armenian refugees receive the assistance that they need. It is my distinct honor to invite to the stage the very dear friend of our community, Congressman Adam Schiff.
Thank you. It's a great honor, Serpaisan, honored clergy, to join you today, my fellow colleagues, and pay our respects to those that were lost in the genocide, and once again rededicate ourselves to the prevention of all genocide and human rights abuses around the world. William Faulkner once wrote that the past is never dead, it's not even past. And that those words have such power and resonance about a great many things, but I think with respect to the Armenian genocide, they have a particular power. Because when you consider the Armenian genocide and the continuing efforts to deny the facts of the genocide, that past is still very much with us. It is still very much an open wound, an ongoing injury. As Elie Wiesel once said, the denial of genocide is the final chapter of genocide. So we are indeed in the final chapter of the Armenian genocide, as long as this denial campaign continues. But it also has resonance, those words of William Faulkner, because the Armenian community is once again at great peril in places like Syria and Iraq, in Artsakh as well as Armenia. At peril from the likes of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, at peril from an increasingly belligerent Azerbaijan and an increasingly authoritarian Erdogan and Turkey. And so the imperative that we have, not only of recognition, but of speaking out, is all the greater. We see around the world today a rise of authoritarianism, an increase in autocracy. You see it in places like Poland and Hungary. You see it in the results that we saw today in Marie Le Pen's party in France. You see it in the opposition to Angela Merkel. You see it, of course, in Russia. And now is a time more than any other where we need the United States once again to exercise its leadership, to speak out on behalf of not only democratic institutions, but human rights all over the world. We need that leadership to fight back against this rise of authoritarianism and the nativism and often the bigotry that we see that led to such horrific results in genocide, in Holocaust, in ethnic cleansing, in all human rights violations. This year we have a new president. And with that new president, we have the hope once again that the strongest commander-in-chief in the world will speak truth to power, will make the right decision. As Chairman Roy said, a great many of us, dozens of us, have written to the president to urge him to do so. This is indeed the most powerful year of any presidency when it comes to the Armenian genocide, because it is the year that often the die is cast. The decision that this new president makes this year, tomorrow, may be the same decision that he makes each and every year that he is in office. So we implore him, we implore President Trump to think of those that were lost, to understand the lessons of the past, the lessons that Soroyan spoke so beautifully of, and Faulkner and others, to recognize that the past is not past. The past is very much with us, these events of 100 years ago, for those that were touched by them, affected by them, might as well have happened yesterday. And at no time more than the present, we need this country to exercise the kind of leadership that is willing to speak out, that is willing to call out even strong nations or weak nations, allies or enemies, anyone engaged in this level of barbarism, past or present. We need to speak with unquestioned moral authority, unequivocally, in our denunciation of the Armenian genocide and each and every genocide that has followed. So we hope, we implore the new president, and we urge our representatives in Congress, at the state legislative level, in city councils around the country to do their part to recognize the genocide in their communities with beautiful memorials like this one, but also legislatively in op-eds and letters to the editor, in discussions with the community. We need to get out the word. And so thank you for your tremendous advocacy. Thank you for once again bringing us together. We will preserve the memories of those who were lost, and we will always dedicate ourselves to remembrance. Thank you, and God bless.
Ինչպես Ալենը քիչ առաջ սավակներեն լեզվով, վաղը ապրիլ 24 է, կեսօրվան ժամը 12-ին կքաշարենք, որ ներկա ալլակ Pan Pacific Park, 7600 Beverly Boulevard։ Հարավային Կալիֆորնիա հայոց ցեղասպանության հանձնախումբին գազագերբությամբ պիտի հավաքվենք եւ քայլարշավ կատարենք դեպի Թուրքիո հյուպատոսարանը Wilshire բողոդայի վրա։ Բաղբան քայլարշավին եւ բահանջադիրության ցույցին ներկա պիտի լան Congressman Adam Schiff, California փոխնահանգապետ Gavin Newsom, Los Angeles-ի քաղաքապետ Eric Garcetti եւ Los Angeles շրջանի դպրոցական խորհրդի նախագահ Steve Zimmer։ Իսկ եթե քայլարշավին չեք գնալ մասնակցի, կքաշարենք, որ ներկա ալակ Թուրքիո հյուպատոսարանի թիմած տեղի ունենալիք բահանջադիրության ցույցին, որ պիտի սկսի ժամ 2-ին։ Շնորհակալություն։ Այժմ բադին ունիմ թեմ հրավիրելու Կալիֆորնիա երիտասարդաց գազագերբության երգչախումբը իրաքահայ գազագերբություն մնի հիանալի երգիչ երգչուհիներ։ Now I have the distinct honor of inviting the California Youth Association Choir, which is an Iraqi Armenian local organization. some of you in the audience may be wondering why we have so many flags behind us. It represents all the countries throughout the world that have recognized the Armenian genocide. Our next speaker is a longtime and staunch friend of the Armenian American community and a member of the Congressional Caucus on Armenian Issues. In the halls of Congress, she serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee and is the chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. Representing the 27th Congressional District of California, which includes Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley. Please give a warm welcome to Congresswoman Judy Chu.
It is an honor to join you and the Armenian community for this solemn commemoration. It's especially meaningful to be here under the shadow of this powerful monument to the Armenian genocide, which will serve as a reminder for visitors and residents for generations to come. 102 years ago this month, Ottoman officials began rounding up and killing Armenian cultural leaders as the run-up to wipe out the Armenian people, the first genocide in modern history. Even though we have historical records and first-person memories from those who survived it, the Armenian genocide is still denied by Turkey and even our own government. And that's why I believe it is so important for us to continue to remind, through events like this, through this monument, as well as the Pasadena Armenian Monument, which I'm so proud of. And also to remind through a very important step forward this year, and that is the movie, The Promise. I had the privilege a month ago of attending the premiere of this film at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Not only did I get to see the film with other Congress members, and it was a bipartisan group, I watched it with a completely packed audience of Capitol Hill staffers, movers, and shakers. Finally, there is an award-worthy feature-length movie that will expose the mainstream of America in every movie theater across America to the tragedy of the Armenian genocide. And that night, the director, Terry George, was there to talk about the making of the film. He is an incredibly talented director who produced the movies Hotel Rwanda, as well as In the Name of the Father. He knows the power of movies to change America. And that's why he knew he had to have stars like Christian Bale. But he also knew that he had to tell personal stories, and by telling those personal stories, he was so powerfully able to move people who watched this film. I was particularly gratified to see that this film included Henry Morgenthau. As America's ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, Morgenthau was a witness to the genocide of the American people, and he recorded what he saw in his memoirs, a copy of which I keep in my office. He describes long marches where women were raped and robbed. He writes about priests and religious institutions targeted as part of the attack on Armenian culture. He talks of men being systematically starved so they would be unable to resist the impending massacre. First-person accounts like this have been so critical to setting the truth straight, despite the denials of Turkey. And it shows that every one of us can do our part. I'm doing my part as well. Earlier this year, I did sign my letter to President Trump, urging him to recognize the Armenian genocide. And again, I'm a proud original co-sponsor of the congressional resolution to recognize the Armenian genocide, and I will be a sponsor every Congress to come until Washington, D.C. finally recognizes this genocide. So thank you again for hosting this event under the shadow of this towering monument to the victims. Thank you for educating us all and making sure that the community and the whole world knows what happened 102 years ago so that it can never happen again. Thank you.
Our keynote this afternoon is a hero of our time. Fethiye Çetin is a Turkish lawyer, writer, and human rights activist. As an attorney, Çetin has been representing the family of the murdered Turkish Armenian newspaper editor Hrant Dink. Growing up in Maden, Fethiye had no reason to suspect that she had other than Turkish Muslim roots until her maternal grandmother, Sehed, revealed to her that her real name was not Sehed. She was by birth an Armenian Christian named Heranush Gadaryan. Heranush was born to parents Hovanets and Iskuhi Gadaryan and was taken from her mother's arm during a death march in the course of the Armenian genocide. This legacy inspired Çetin's first book, a memoir published in 2014 about her grandmother's story entitled My Grandmother, an Armenian-Turkish memoir. The memoir follows Heranush through the eyes of her grandmother, from the memories of Çetin's childhood to the horrendous events of the Armenian genocide her grandmother revealed to her as an adult. Çetin, to have discovered that Heranush's village had all their men slaughtered in 1915, and the women and children were forced into exile, walking for miles and miles with Turkish soldiers, more than willing to pick up any stragglers. It was during this tireless march that Heranush was taken out of her mother's arm and adopted by a Turkish soldier. It was from this adoption that Çetin's grandmother adopted the identity of Sehed, the content Muslim housewife that raised Çetin. My Grandmother, translated into English by Maureen Freely, has become a demanding reading piece at some progressive Turkish institutes of higher education. Hugh Pope, reviewing the book for today's Zaman, characterizes the book as part of a trend in Turkey that is grappling with a history of denial, nationalism, and a fear of political consequences regarding the lost Armenians. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Fethiye Çetin.
Merhaba dostlar. Merhaba kardeşler.
Hello friends. Hello brothers and sisters.
Adalet ve hakikat savunucuları. Mezarsız ölenlerin, hayatta kalıp da inanılmaz acılar çekenlerin, yine de hayatta kalmayı başaran cesur kadın ve erkeklerin torunları merhaba.
Defenders of justice and truth. Hello to the descendants of those who died and were left unburied, who suffered intensely yet managed to survive. Hello to the descendants of these brave men and women.
Tarihi boyunca hiçbir günahıyla, hiçbir zulmüyle hesaplaşmamış, dolayısıyla hiçbir kötülüğünden arınmamış bir devletin vatandaşı olmanın ağır yüküyle karşınızdayım.
I come into your presence with the heavy burden of being a citizen of a state that has never in its history confronted the cruelties it has committed and never purified itself from its wicked sins.
Şiddetin, korkunun, baskının olağan ve meşru kılındığı bir ülkeden geliyorum. Bireylerini mutsuzluğa, gençlerini umutsuzluğa mahkum etmeye adeta yeminli bir ülkeden.
I am coming from a country in which violence, fear, and oppression have been normalized and legitimized. From a country in which individuals have been persistently condemned to unhappiness and the youth to despair.
İnsanların bedenlerinin devlet bombalarıyla paramparça edildiği, devlet kurşunlarıyla çocuk bedenlerin delik deşik edildiği, muhaliflere, gazetecilere dünyayı dar eden bir ülkeden.
From a country in which people have been blown up into pieces by bombs of their own state, in which bodies of children have been riddled by bullets of their state, in which the state makes life unbearable for opponents and journalists.
Raphael Lemkin, soykırımın iki aşamasının olduğunu söyler. Birincisi, ezilen grubun ulusal karakteristiklerinin imha edilmesidir. Diğeri ise ezen ulusun ulusal karakteristiklerini zorla dayatmasıdır.
There are two phases of genocide, says Raphael Lemkin. The first is the annihilation of the oppressed group's national character, and the second is the imposition of the oppressor's national character on the victims by force.
Bu bakımdan soykırımlar sadece yıkıcı değil, deyimlerin yerinde ise yaratıcı, kurucu süreçlerdir. Yıktıklarının üzerine yeni bir devlet, yeni bir millet, yeni bir kimlik yaratır ve yarattıklarını zorla dayatırlar. Dikensiz gül bahçesidir umdukları ama olmaz. Umduklarını bir türlü bulamazlar çünkü bahçe ölmüştür.
From this point of view, genocides are not only destructive, but also creative and constructive processes, in a matter of speaking. They build a new state, a new nation, and a new identity upon what they have destructed. Then they impose their constructed nationhood by force. Their hopes of a garden of thornless roses, but those hopes are never realized, because the garden is dead.
Çünkü Levinas diyor ki, öteki üzerinde mutlak iktidar ancak öldürerek mümkün. Fakat öldürünce üstünde iktidar arzulanan şey de artık ölmüş oluyor.
Because the absolute hegemony over the other is only possible by killing him. However, once the other is killed, the intended object of hegemony is also dead, says Levinas.
Kuruluşunu soykırım vahşeti ve şiddeti üzerine temellendiren benim de vatandaşı olduğum devlet, yıllardır korkular ve tehditler üreterek her an harcanabilir, gözden çıkarılabilir hayatlar yaratarak ayakta tutuyor kendini.
The state which I am a citizen of, whose foundation lies on the ferocity and violence of genocide, has for years stood on its feet by creating fear and threats, by making the lives of its people expendable to be disposed of at any moment.
Soykırım sadece bedenleri değil, algıları da, değerleri de takip ediyor. Kaybedilen en büyük değer, hayatın kutsallığına inançtır artık. Dün harcanabilir hayatlar Ermenilerinkiydi, bugün Kürtler, kadınlar, muhalifler, eşcinseller, yani bütün farklılıklar ve bütün renkler.
Genocide destroys not only bodies, but also values and conceptions. Therefore, the most significant value lost is faith in the sanctity of life. Yesterday, it was the Armenians' lives that were wasted. Today, it's the Kurds, women, opponents, homosexuals, in other words, all those who are different in all their hues and colors.
Bilindiği gibi soykırım var olan toplumu en acılı, en zalim biçimde parçalamakla kalmıyor, yeni oluşturulan topluluğun dokusunu da korku ve nefretle, şiddetle ve utançla biçimlendiriyor.
As is known, not only does genocide painfully and oppressively shatter an existing society, it also shapes the newly emerging society with fear, hatred, violence, and disgrace.
Bu ortam yıkımları, travmaları yeniden üretiyor. Hükümetler geliyor, hükümetler gidiyor ama sonuç değişmiyor. Rahat ve huzur aranıyor ama bir türlü bulunamıyor. Mezarsız ölülerin, hayatta kalıp da inanılmaz acılar çekenlerin ahı üzerine yeni bir hayat kurulabilir mi? Huzur bulunabilir mi? Ölülerimizi gömmeden, yaslarını tutmadan ne yeni bir hayat kurulabilir ne de huzur bulunabilir.
This atmosphere recreates destruction and trauma. Governments come and go, but the consequences never change. People are unable to find the peace and comfort they seek. Could a new life be founded upon the unburied dead or upon the lament of the survivors who endured incredible pain? Could there be peace on such a life? Without burying and mourning our dead, a new life cannot be established, nor can peace be found.
Şiddet sarmalından çıkabilmek, öncelikle şiddeti her gün biçimlerde, yeni biçimlerde üreten siyaset çarkının kökten değişimiyle mümkün. Lakin devlet bu çark hep böyle dönsün istiyor.
It is only possible to escape the spiral of violence by first changing the political cycle that creates a new type of violence every day. However, the state wants the cycle to continuously function this way.
Bunun için bütün enerjisini ve imkanlarını inkar için her yıl ABD Başkanı'nın ağzından o söz, yani soykırım sözü çıkmasın diye seferber ediyor. Dış işlerini devreye sokarak sorunu bir dış politika malzemesi haline getiriyor. Hakikati gizlemek için olağanüstü çaba ve kaynak harcıyor. Ancak sorun çözülmüyor ve her yıl gündeme gelmeye devam ediyor.
It is for this reason, for the sake of denial, all energies and resources are spent to prevent the President of the United States from using the word being genocide. Foreign Affairs is called in and turns the issue into a political matter. In order to hide the truth, extraordinary efforts and resources are spent. Thus, the issue is never solved and reappears year after year.
Her 24 Nisan'da ABD Başkanı'nın ağzından çıkacak söze odaklanmak, sorunun çözümüne bir fayda sağlamadığı gibi 1915'te yaşanan acıları ve insan unsurunu geri plana itiyor. Sonuçta bu sorun açgözlü bir lobicilik ve siyasi pazarlık malzemesi haline getiriliyor. ABD Kongresi'ne bu konuda sunulan yasa tasarıları bir futbol karşılaşması mantığıyla onaylanıyor. Oylanıyor. Bu yaklaşım tarzı mağdurları ve mağdurların torunlarını derinden incittiği gibi sorunu araçsallaştırıyor, önemsizleştiriyor.
To focus so much attention on the word the President of the United States will use every 24th of April does not help resolve the issue. It only overshadows the human aspect and pain suffered in 1915. In the end, this issue ends up becoming material for greedy lobbyists and political bargaining. The resolutions introduced to Congress are approached and played out like a soccer match. As this approach deeply hurts the victims and the victims' grandchildren, it instrumentalizes the issue and renders it insignificant.
Çünkü sorun, devletin kendi vatandaşlarına uyguladığı büyük adaletsizliğin onarılması sorunudur. Çözümü de adaleti sağlamaya yönelik ve insani olmalıdır. Sorun her şeyden önce hep birlikte iyileşme ve acil bir gelecek kurma sorunu.
This problem is one of repairing an enormous injustice imposed by the state on its own subjects. Its solution must aim to secure justice. It must be humanitarian. Above all, the issue is one of healing and creating a just future together.
Devlet bu çark hep böyle dönsün istiyor ama artık içeride insanlar, özellikle gençler, çarkın işleyişini sorgulamaya başladı bile. Sadece siyasi çarkın işleyişini değil, tarihi anlatısını, ulusun temellerini, kimliklerini sorgulayan gençlerin sayısı her geçen gün artıyor. Genç akademisyenler şiddetin yapısal köklerini sorun ediyorlar. 100 yıl öncesinde yaşanan o en büyük, en vahşi şiddetin günümüzdeki etkilerini tartışıyorlar. Aile tarihleri araştırılıyor, kökler sorgulanıyor. 1915'te dedelerin ne yaptığı ile ilgili zor sorular soruluyor.
The Turkish state prefers the cycle to continue this way, but the people of the country, especially the youth, have already begun to question the functions of the cycle. The number of youth questioning not only the functions of the political cycle, but the Turkish historical narrative, the foundations of the nation and their national identities as well, is increasing day by day. Young scholars are questioning the roots of the violence and are discussing the current effect of that most cruel and most savage violence that happened a century ago. Family histories are being examined, runes are being questioned. People ask difficult questions about what their grandparents did in 1915.
Son zamanlarda çok önemli yeni gelişmelere tanık oluyoruz. Düne kadar Müslümanlaştırılmış mağdur nine ve dede hikayeleri anlatılırken bugün fail dedelerin hikayeleri paylaşılıyor. Faillerin torunları çok zorlu süreçlerden geçerek konuşmaya, katil dedeleriyle aralarına mesafe koymaya başladılar.
Lately, we have been witnessing some extremely important developments. Up until yesterday, people only spoke of grandfathers and grandmothers as victims who had been converted into Islam. However, today they share stories of their grandparents who were perpetrators. After periods of hardship, the grandchildren of the perpetrators began to speak up and keep their distance from their murderous grandfathers.
Yolda yürürken arkamdan koşarak gelip omuzuma dokunan kişiye dönüp bakıyorum. Hiç tanımadığım biri, genç bir erkek, nefes nefese ve acıyla özür dilemem gerek, benim özür dilemem gerek diyor. Nedenini soruyorum. Dedem bizim köydeki katliama katılmış, 3 Ermeni öldürmüş diyor ve dudakları titriyor. Acı çekiyor. Özür dilemek istiyor, muhatabını arıyor.
While walking on the street, someone runs up from behind me and taps my shoulder. I turn around and see a young man that I had never met before. As he stands there panting, he begins speaking painfully, saying, "I must apologize, I must apologize." I ask him why. He answers with his lips trembling. "My grandfather took part in massacres in our village. He killed 3 Armenians. He's in pain. He wants to apologize. He is looking for someone to communicate with."
Bir konuşmamda Çermik Çüngüş Ermenilerinin başlarına geleni anlatıp Tüden'e canlı canlı atılanları ve katil aşiret reisinin ismini söylüyorum. Konuşmam bitiyor. Soru cevap bölümünde elini ürkek bir biçimde kaldırmaya çalışan genç bir kız gözüme ilişiyor. Siz bir şey mi söyleyeceksiniz diye soruyorum. Rengi bembeyaz, dudakları ve eli titriyor. Kendine uzatılan mikrofonu tutmakta zorlanıyor. Neden sonra güçlükle hiç kimseye anlatmadığım, hatta erkek arkadaşımla bile paylaşmadığım bir sırrımı burada sizinle paylaşacağım. Demin sözünü ettiğiniz katil aşiret reisi benim dedem diyor ve ağlamaya başlıyor. Erkek arkadaşı arka sıralardan koşarak gelip ona sarılıyor ve birlikte ağlıyorlar.
In one of my talks, I told what happened to the Armenians of Chermik and Chungush. Then I told the story of those who were thrown alive into the river Duden. I concluded my talk by giving the name of the chief of the tribe who was responsible for killing those people. In the question and answer period, a young woman was trying to raise her hand skittishly. I asked whether she wanted to say something. She was ashen-faced and her lips trembled. She could barely hold the microphone given to her. After a while, she said, "I would like to share a secret with you that I have not shared with anyone, even my boyfriend. The murder chief that you mentioned was my grandfather." Then she started to cry. Her boyfriend came up running from the back and hugged her, and both of them cried together.
Daha düne kadar Türkiye'li Ermeniler dışlanmamak için, ayrımcılığa ve saldırılara uğramamak için isimlerini değiştirirlerdi. Mesela Grant'ı Fırat, Ohannes'i Orhan yaptıkları gibi. Bugün artık faillerin torunları soy isimlerini değiştiriyorlar.
Up until yesterday, Armenians of Turkey changed their names in order to save themselves from discrimination and attacks. For example, Hrant became Fırat, Ohannes became Orhan, and so on. Today, the grandchildren of the perpetrators are changing their family names.
Katil dedenin torunu olmaktan, onun ismiyle anılmaktan utanç duyuyorlar. Oysa ne çok çabalamıştı fail dedeler, hakikat ortaya çıkmasın, yapılanlar inkar edilsin diye. Ama olmuyor. Ne kadar inkar ederseniz edin, eninde sonunda hakikat ortaya çıkıyor. Çünkü vahşet ve hakikat gömülmeyi reddediyor.
They feel ashamed being the grandchild of a murderer or named after him, despite the great efforts of their murderous grandparents to cover up the reality and to deny what they had done. But it is not working. Deny as they may, at the end of the day, the truth will reveal itself.
Yeterli mi? Değil elbette. Daha yapacak çok işimiz, gidecek çok yolumuz var. Ama henüz başında da olsak dev bir kapıyı araladık, önemli bir eşik açtık. Bu durum bana göre ABD Başkanı'nın ağzından çıkacak sözden daha önemli görünüyor. Çünkü değerli olan güç değil, doğruluktur.
Is this enough? Of course not. There is still much we have to do. We have a long way to go. Although we are still at the beginning, we cracked open the huge door and conquered important milestones. This seems to me more important than the US President's word, because what is valuable is truth, not power.
Zalim her zaman dayanacak bir sırt arar. O sırt ben olmayacağım diyen insanların sayısı her geçen gün artıyor.
The oppressor always looks for support, a back to lean on. The number of people saying, "I will not be that support, that back," is increasing day by day.
Sözlerimi soykırımda hayatını kaybeden dedelerimiz ve nenelerimizin onurlarına ve anılarına saygıyla, hayatta kalabilenlerin cesaretine, dayanıklılığına ve gücüne hayranlıkla ve hepinizin önünde söz vererek bitirmek istiyorum.
I would like to conclude by remembering our grandparents who died during the genocide, by paying respect to their honor and memory, and by revering those who survived for their bravery and strength and endurance. In your presence, I promise,
bugüne kadar Zalimin dayanacağı sırt olmadım, bundan böyle de olmayacağım.
I never provided support, lent a back to an oppressor to lean on. I never will.
Bütün enerjimi ve gücümü zalim dayanacak sırt bulamasın diye harcamaya söz verdim, sözümü tutacağım.
I swear that I will use all my energy and power to prevent oppressors from finding supporting backs. I will keep my word.
Gücüm ve ömrüm yettiğince.
As much as I can and for as long as I will.
Our next speaker has been supporting the Armenian American community since his days of service on the La Cañada Flint Ridge City Council, and later as a California State Assembly member. Elected to the California State Senate in 2016. In March 2017, he spearheaded the establishment of the Senate Select Committee on California, Armenia, and Artsakh Mutual Trade, Art, and Cultural Exchange. Representing the 25th California State Senate District, please give a warm welcome to our community's longtime and loyal friend, State Senator Anthony Portantino.
It's difficult to follow that terrific keynote address. Please, let's give our keynote address one more round of applause. Truth is important, not power. Great message. So, good afternoon, Badi Gesor, honored clergy. Thank you for having me today. I've attended this event for a long time, but this is the first time I've had the honor of speaking. So, thank you for that opportunity to share this moment. As we know, tomorrow marks the 102nd anniversary of Hayot Te Ras Vanuchu. I stand with you today as we remember and honor the 1.5 million Armenians that were persecuted and massacred by the Ottoman Turks in one of the most horrendous violations of human rights in history. For me, as a non-Armenian, I endeavor to keep in mind that with each casual conversation, academic discussion, or speech or event I attend or participate in, there is and was a tragic human story that needs to be remembered and told. We must always collectively remember. Mishti Shel, we must always remember. For the past century, Turkey has actively campaigned for Armenian genocide denial, working to silence Armenians and non-Armenians residing in Turkey who speak the truth about the genocide. While in Artsakh, ethnic Armenians live with the imminent danger of Azeri tanks and the constant threat of war. Even in the state capital, the Azeris were lobbying against the committee we just set up in the state senate. This denial and violent threat denies many Armenians a just and rightful peace. In addition to genocide denial, religious discrimination and intolerance remain serious issues in the current Republic of Turkey. Discriminatory laws are still used to justify the confiscation of church property and prevent free worship. I join with historians who believe that historical Armenian churches represent the cultural heritage of the Armenian nation and should be returned to their rightful owners to be cherished and used for appropriate religious purposes. I am very proud to represent a large Armenian community in the diaspora who have enriched our state through their leadership, social, business, and educational contributions. Many of the families of friends and neighbors have expressed firsthand the horrors of the genocide and its denial for over a century. Undue denial haunts genocide survivors and prevents good people from properly healing. Clearly, recognition is appropriate, long overdue, and without it, allows the passion and pain to continue and to be present unnecessarily. I was deeply saddened when I read details of President Trump's phone call congratulating Erdogan on the eve of April 24th, which tells me that leaders in Washington, not our congressional leaders today, but leaders in Washington who don't represent the Armenian community, turn a deaf ear to justice and the appropriate recognition of the Armenian genocide. That's why it's imperative that California leads by example through our strong genocide and Artsakh recognitions. It is for this reason, yes, California has led the way. It is for this reason that I was proud to introduce Senate Resolution 29, which passed the Senate unanimously on Monday and designates the entire month of April for the commemoration of the Armenian genocide. In addition, SR 29 urges the President and Congress to join California in recognizing the atrocities of 1915 constituted genocide against the Armenian people. The resolution also calls on the Republic of Turkey to return confiscated private and church properties to their rightful owners and congregations, to end all forms of ethnic and religious discrimination and persecution. But SR 29 is a small step in the journey to healing, which fulfills California's human rights commitment and responsibility. This past June, I had the opportunity to travel to Armenia and Artsakh. I was moved by the positive spirit of the good people who aspire to live in peaceful democracy, free of Azeri aggression, violence, and threats. Armenians in their homeland were filled with optimism and pride and a positive national spirit. Everywhere I went, from Gyumri to Stepanakert to downtown Yerevan, townspeople and city dwellers were engaged by the inspiration and humility of Pope Francis and their own national identity and sense of purpose. I came home touched and moved by the overwhelming positive experience. Armenians, both in our great state and throughout the world, continue to thrive and make significant contributions in the sciences, arts, medicine, government, and law as they demand justice for the crimes committed by the Ottoman Turks in 1915. Which brings to mind the famous Armenian-American writer William Saroyan's powerful words. Aksoretsek, irens, duneren, tevi anabatnera, tsaketsek arans hatsiev, chori iretsek, anons duneran, u yegerietsinera, desekte anonk ichbes, bidi veratsnin, desekte anonk ichbes, gergin bidi hangtan. Send them to the desert. Don't give them food or water. Burn their homes and churches. See how they will rise again. See how they will laugh again. Saroyan beautifully explains the resiliency of the Armenian people, both in the homeland and the diaspora, which helped Armenians overcome the horrific crimes they fell victim to. Now, a century following Turkey's failed attempt to annihilate the Armenian people, the sense of cultural identity within the community remains strong, with the new generation embracing the beautiful language, even if I butcher it, music, art, culture, and traditions, while learning the stories of their ancestors. Hayot Badmut Yum. In the last decade, the Armenian community has embraced and welcomed me. It makes me smile, gives me the comfort and confidence to speak today, not as a senator, but as a friend, who, yes, struggles a bit with my attempt to speak Armenian, but with the confidence knowing that you hear, respect, and the sincerity in my efforts. Shanor Galutsum. I'm proud to chair the California Hayastam and Artsakh Mutual Trade, Art, and Cultural Exchange Senate Select Committee, which I work to bring to fruition after meeting with business and governmental leaders and visiting innovation centers during my trip to Hayastam. Through the Select Committee, we will explore innovative ways to strengthen cultural and economic ties between California, Hayastam, and Artsakh. Our first event was showing the promise in the state capitol on Monday. To both Odars and Armenians alike, we had 250 people watch the movie with us. As we approach the 102nd anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, I find it important to stress the importance of always remembering and learning from the past while celebrating the resiliency of the Armenian community, which overcame horrible atrocities and proves daily that Turkey failed in its attempt to annihilate the Armenian people. When I was in Artsakh with my good friend Zadeh Sinanian, and we were 100 yards away from the Azeri tanks that were destroyed on April 2nd, a major handed me a handful of dirt. And this underscores the resiliency and the passion that has struck me so strongly. He handed me a handful of dirt and he said, "This is our land. We're going to stand on our land. We're going to fight on our land. And we're going to die on our land." That's the resilience of the Armenian people. There is nothing I can say that will take the pain or ease the memories of the atrocities that occurred in the past. What I can say is this: I will continue to stand with the Armenian community as we all demand justice for the crimes committed in 1915 and to promote opportunity, education, and prosperity for a vibrant community you have honored me to represent. Gank Bidi Linenk Uter Shadana.
We're almost coming to a close, folks. Our next speaker is someone that is very near and dear to my heart. He's an individual that has inspired a whole generation of young Armenian Americans to get involved in politics and get active. Every time I see him, I think where I would be if it wasn't for him, and where a lot of Armenian youth would be if it wasn't for him, including Garo Torosyan, who is currently running for LA City Council, and elections are going to be on May 16. Prior to becoming an assembly member in California, Assemblymember Adrian Nazarian served as the chief of staff for Council Member Paul Krikorian, and back then state assembly member, as a state assembly member. Assemblymember Nazarian got elected into the California State Assembly in 2012, and in a very short 5 years, he's truly accomplished the unimaginable. He put forth a bill that ensured that Armenian genocide education is actually part of the curriculum framework in California. I think that deserves a round of applause on film. Worked tirelessly to ensure California's recognition of Artsakh, and of course, most recently introduced a bill in California State Assembly to divest funds from Turkey, our tax dollars. So it is my distinct honor to invite him to the stage. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you for that introduction. I should cut it very short, and I will. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to the United Armenian Council of Los Angeles for bringing us all together in commemoration of this 102nd memorial of our fallen forefathers. I, along with my colleagues in the state, will continue in not only just remembering what happened 102 years ago, but will continue to push the issue to the forefront with bills such as AB 1597, which is what Ellen was talking about, the divestment of our pension funds from Turkish government bonds, as well as AB 1399, which is yet another step in the continuous educational effort, just credentialing for teachers with studies in genocide and human atrocities. But on a personal note, I just want to share something with all of you as you make your way back home and as we, assuming starting to conclude the program. It was about 35, 36 years ago that I was sitting right here, sitting probably all the way to the back with my sister and my aunt, and Governor George Deukmejian came up to speak. Right before him was Mayor Tom Bradley. And I'm not sentimental about how things can happen and transfer of power, or what happened at that point and it transferred something in me. I'm not going to talk about that because truth of the matter is my family had just survived an ordeal of coming here as political asylees. I didn't even have a green card at the time when I was here 36 years ago, attending this same very event. But I worked. The undeniable persistence and urgency of the desire and demand of justice propelled me to public service. And before running for office, I campaigned heavily, got many people involved, and eventually saw myself to office. But I only bring this up because as we remember today, and as we light a candle today and tomorrow, the next month, we have an opportunity to get a young man elected to City Council, Garo Torosyan sitting right there, running for Council District 7. It's important to recognize and remember, but it's more important about what we do. We have an opportunity in a month to put that person in office. And let's find out then, with him working with Caro, what mountains they won't be able to move in the council. Thank you very much.
We are not near conclusion yet. As they say, the best is saved for last, or penultimate. Next speaker is a great friend of the Armenian nation. Sabri Atman was born in Nispin in southeast Turkey. His family and the overwhelming majority of Assyrians were living in Nisibin before the Kurds and Turks came to the region. He serves as the president of the Seyfo Center, a research center that works to raise awareness about the Assyrian genocide on a global scale. The center is based in Sweden, with branches in Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, and the United States. Without further ado, please give a round of applause to Mr. Sabri Atman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom Aleichem, which means peace be upon you in my Assyrian language. Over 100 years ago, unknown to most, 2/3 of the Assyrian population were massacred by the Ottoman Turks. While the Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek genocide is a historical fact, Turkey still denies that it took place. This genocide is an event that the survivors will never forget. The wounds of this genocide are not healed yet. Turkey and their allies from the Kurdish tribes must not only acknowledge this crime that they committed, but also compensate the survivors for the pain and losses suffered at their hands. Instead of acknowledging the wrongs of the past, Turkey strongly advocates and lobbies to the world to forget about it and just move on. Yet, with generation displaced and a future destroyed, the people, our people, cannot simply forget our cause is just, and we stand defiant to declare that to the world that what Turkey did is a crime against humanity, and we will never forget it. Turkey should acknowledge the crimes they committed and compensate the survivors, period. Turkey has not learned from its past. It's still governed by Erdogan, a president who became a dictator and who repeatedly says it is not possible for a Muslim to commit a genocide. This statement flies in the face of the reality that Turkey is still denying that it's the killing of millions of Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks. The president of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, and other deniers do not want to understand and do not want to hear our voice. They are poisoned with a blind ideology which is denialism. They don't want to face their history as civilized country. We get it. We understand this. But how about the rest of the world? How about the United States of America? There are politicians who promise things which is good, but it is much better when we see politicians who keep their promises. We don't want the truth to become victim of real politics. We urge the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, to recognize the Armenian and Assyrian and Greek genocide. We want to hear the G word and saying, yes, it was genocide. We want to be understood by the entire world. We want our wounds to be healed. This is what we are asking for, and this is possible only when we get justice. Until this, Armenians, Assyrians, and Greeks will never give up. And we will never forget the Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek genocide. Thank you. Havitum Basim Maraba.
We're down to the last speaker, folks. Our next esteemed speaker, the permanent representative of the Artsakh Republic, Robert Avedisyan, representing humbly yet relentlessly the freedom-loving and resilient people of Artsakh, who to date continue to be targets of Azerbaijani aggression, who to date continue to seek the self-determination, independence, and the right to live under the government of their own choosing. A government that is transparent, democratic, and has the interests of the Armenian people at heart. Rather than the alternative Azerbaijani government, considered the world's most corrupt governments with gross human rights violations under the dictatorship of the Aliyev regime. The same self-determination and independence that the United States was able to obtain as it seeked to create a more perfect union. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage the Honorable Robert Avedisyan.
Thank you, Linda, for the kind introduction. Reverend clergy, honorable guests, distinguished guests, Consul General, Consul staff, Sireli Hayranakisner, I'm very glad to be here with you today. This is not the first time I'm here, but first time I'm sharing my thoughts with you. Of course, these days Armenians across the world pay tribute to the memory of the innocent victims of the Armenian genocide, including your compatriots in Artsakh. As all of you know, these kind of events are taking place across the United States, and many people attend them, Armenians, non-Armenians. The expectations we have are pretty much different, but we have something in common. Every time when we get together, we hope to have another world. We hope to have another Turkey. We hope to have another United States in terms of the recognition of the Armenian genocide. We're not there yet, which doesn't mean that the activities so many people, organizations, parties, individuals are doing are not effective. Every year, more and more people get to know about the Armenian genocide. Every year, more and more people in Turkey, including very many brave people in Turkey itself, speak out. And I'm glad that we had Dr. Çetin with us, the person who I respect very much, and who I hope will one day become the symbol of the new Turkish people. And I think all of us should be giving a special credit to all the organizations which are involved in this very, very difficult and everyday 24/7 activity. And by the way, the Wyoming, a couple of days ago, just became the 45th state. I congratulate everyone. The United States is one step closer on the right path. In general, I think one of the recent observations is that the issue of the Armenian genocide is becoming an issue which is very much close to the level of democratization in Turkey. Right? We know that it's a problem in Turkey to speak about the Armenian genocide, and I'm very glad to bring the signal from Washington, D.C. that the U.S. Congress has been recently very importantly and very significantly paying very, very important attention to the democratization processes in Turkey. And there have been hearings and there have been statements which we hope that will help for the Turkish society to open up and to speak out, because I know that now about 10% of the Turkish population, they already know what is genocide and accept it. If it wasn't up to the Erdogan's government, the number would have been significantly higher. And I hope that the activity by our friends on the Hill and in the State Department will make that number even bigger, because everybody is interested in having a predictable and democratic Turkey. We in Artsakh, we know what is a genocide, and we are, unfortunately, we're not of the nations which should be reminded about the genocide. Right? We lived it in 1915, we lived it in so many occasions afterwards, the genocidal events, and the genocidal threat is still there, every day, today. It was yesterday, and we're sure that it will be tomorrow. We fight our part of the battle, the soldiers, ordinary citizens of the Artsakh Republic. We fight our part. We preserve our borders. We make Artsakh stronger, which means a stronger Armenia and a stronger and safer Armenian diaspora. But we need the help of our friends in that struggle. And I want to thank, on behalf of all of us, as an Armenian, as an Artsakhi, to thank all our congressional friends for their steadfast efforts in this direction, including supporting Artsakh and promoting the genocide recognition. I think it's hope of all of us that the most recent initiative by longtime supporters of truth and justice, Congressman Schiff and Trott, will get to the logical outcome. One of the human rights champions, Montebello, once said that it all seems impossible until it is done one day. I'm sure that we'll get there. We'll get there because this is important for the United States. It is important for Turkey itself, if it wants to be perceived as a civilized member of the international community. And it is important for each and every person on this planet and for our civilization, if we want to live a safer and a better world for the generations to come. We do our part. We're looking forward to continue all the efforts we have, and I hope that one day people who will be speaking from here will see the Turkish flags among the flags which are represented here. I thank all of you, and God bless you all.
Սիրելի հայրենագիտներ, Լոս Անջելեսի հայոց ցեղասպանության ողջագործման միացյալ մարմնի անունով գուսանք, որ ներշնչված եք այս տարվան պատգամներեն եւ մղված դաստաբատելու ծեր արդեն նվիրված աշխատանքը ի նվաստ Հայաստանին, Արցախ աշխարհին եւ Սփյուռքահայության, մասնավորապես հարավային Կալիֆոռնիա հայ քաղաքին, քաղաքական եւ ստեղծագործական զարգացման ծիրերեն ներս։ Եթե Burbank, Pasadena, North Hollywood, Montebello, Hollywood, South Bay կամ San Fernando հովիտի մեջ կփնագի, գոչ կնենք եւ կաչալերենք, որ ծեր ներհուն մասնակցությունը բերեք քաղաքացիական կորձունեությանց մեջ, ի նվաստ ծեր հատուկ համայնքին եւ հայ ժողովրդին։ Տեխնազու եղեք քաղաքային հանձնախումբերու մեջ գամավոր աշխատելու նպատակով, մասնակցելով դեղական, շրջանային եւ նահանգային քաղաքական ոլորտները ներս, դուք մեծ ներդրում պիտի կատարեք ոչ միայն ծեր անձնական քաղաքական փափակները իրականացնելու համար, այլ նաեւ հայ ժողովրդին իրավունքներուն պաշտպանության առումով, ըլլան Հայաստանի կամ Արցախի մեր քույրերուն եւ եղբայրներուն, ինչպես նաեւ հայերու, որոնք աջակցության գարիք ունին իսպյուրս աշխարհի։ Հետևաբար, եկեք հետևենք մեր անցյալի կորձունյա քաղաքական թեմքերու դիբար օրինակներուն, որոնք հայոց ցեղասպանության դարիներուն եւ հաջորդող տասնամյակներուն փարոս դարձան հետագա սերունդներուն։ Միասնապար աշխատենք, որպեսզի վերստին ապրին նորօրյա Պողոսնուբարներ, Ավետիս Ահարոնյաններ, Միրան Դամադյաններ, Արմեն Գարոներ, Հրանչ Երվատներ, Ռուփեն Թարպինյաններ, Զաբել Եսայաններ, Վահան Քադաշյաններ եւ շատ ուրիշներ։ Հարգանք մեր անմեղ նահատակներուն եւ փառք ու պատիվ հայ զինվորին ու հայ ժողովրդին։ Թող հավերժ ապրի մեր վեր հայրենիքը։
As we conclude the program this evening, I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. And it goes something like, I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that. And then I realized I'm somebody. So be that somebody that marches from the Pan Pacific to the Turkish consulate tomorrow. Be that somebody that takes our unified voice from the march to the ballot box on May 16. Be that somebody that teaches the future generations about our cause and our history and how important it is to not repeat it for future generations to live in peace and prosperity. Thank you very much.